Britain abolished slavery in 1833, it was one of the greatest moral decisions in history, but not one the whole world celebrated. For the enslaved, it was the sound of hope. For the abolitionists, it was a long-awaited victory. But for traders, planters, and empires still living on human bondage, it was a threat to their world. Freedom for the enslaved had been declared, but the struggle for its meaning had only begun. The British Empire knew that many slave owners would resist the new law. To avoid rebellion in the colonies and to ease the transition, Parliament sought a compromise. They believed that if the former masters were paid compensation for their losses, it might calm their anger and help them accept the new law to free all slaves. So Parliament promised compensation, not to the enslaved, but to those who had owned them. £20 million, almost half the empire's annual budget, was paid to plantation owners across the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. It was the largest single government payout in British history at the time. Bankers and investors in London prospered. Some of the nation's wealthiest families built their fortunes on that money. The payments lingered into and beyond the 20th century, marking one of the greatest financial sacrifices ever made in the name of God and righteousness by freeing the enslaved. For the newly freed, there were few material rewards, yet they walked away from the plantations with faith in their hearts and the courage to begin again. The world they entered was uncertain, but it was a world at last open to the light of freedom. For Britain, the cost was enormous, but its willingness to pay that cost marked a turning point in human history, a nation choosing conscience over commerce and righteousness over profit. The same empire that had once ruled the slave trade had now sacrificed its wealth to end it, and in doing so, it became a symbol of moral awakening to the world. Yet Britain's conscience did not stop at its financial sacrifice. The empire that once sent ships to carry slaves now sent its navy to hunt them. Patrolling distant seas, intercepting slave vessels, and challenging nations still bound to the old trade. It was a costly mission, driven not by profit, but by principle, a fight to prove that righteousness could be stronger than greed. Too often, people blame Europeans for the African slave trade, yet it was those same nations, especially Britain, that finally brought it to an end. For perhaps the first time in human history, a world power used its strength not to conquer, but to correct, not to exploit, but to atone. Britain's navy became the sword of conscience, and its ships the vessels of moral duty upon the seas. But this story is not one of blame, it is one of redemption. For the unrighteousness of slavery did not begin in any single nation. It began in the human heart long before ships set sail, when greed and pride made people sell one another for gain. The Africans who sold their own, the traders who profited, and the empires that bought, all shared in the same failure of conscience. And it was only through the mercy of God that hearts were changed and righteousness began to rise again. Britain's sacrifice stands as a witness to that transformation, proof that a people can turn away from evil and choose good, no matter their past. The cost of freedom was great, but the reward was greater, the moral victory of conscience over corruption and faith over fear. History remembers the signatures that ended slavery, but heaven remembers the repentance that made them possible and the grace that moved a nation to act. For all good comes from God, and all evil from the weakness within ourselves. The legacy of that decision still echoes today, a reminder that when humanity listens to its conscience, even empires can change their course. Freedom was bought once in gold and then in blood, spilled not in conquest, but in battle upon the seas, as the British Navy fought to end the trade. It was a sacrifice born of faith and sustained by a belief in God and righteousness. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Beyond the Veil. I hope it gave you something to think about, something that will bring you closer to the truth. And I'd love for you to be a part of this journey. Make sure you subscribe, share this video with a friend, and leave a comment to let me know what stood out to you. Together we can bring more light to the world. See you next time.